Hello and what is up, YouTube? My name is G3 Iron, and today we are doing your frequently asked questions. You get to ask the questions, and I'm going to do my best to try to answer them. We've compiled some questions here that we've asked on the G3 YouTube community page, as well as some frequently asked questions that I get, whether that's through Discord or through email. Of course, those of you who have been around the channel for a while, you know the format. You can like, subscribe, and ding the bell for more content just like this one. There are timestamps that are located directly above my slightly balding forehead, and those are, of course, hot linked for you down below in the video description. So one of the most common questions that I get, and no, I am not going to say like next meme or next question. I'm not PewDiePie over here. I'm not entertaining in that way. I'm sorry. Go watch Meme Review if that's what you're looking for. But I will say, next question here. One of the most frequent questions that I get is, does G3 Iron ever stream? I get this a lot of the time on Discord. Hey, like, why don't you stream? From DeBrian, hey, do you ever stream at all? I stream to just one viewer myself. Like, hey, can you stream? Why don't you stream? And the simple answer to this, I've answered this in every FAQ that we've done. Couple of reasons. One is that I've got a family, and so that makes streaming as a scheduling, it's a scheduling nightmare. To try and stream something consistently for a community of players that would like me to stream consistently, it simply wouldn't be worth it either to you all as a community for what I would be able to do, and it wouldn't be worth it for me in what I like to do in the limited time that I've got available. So I'll give you a quick example of this. Most streamers that stream as a full-time job, where that is how they provide for themselves and their loved ones, most streamers need to stream either 6 to 7 days a week. Those of you that are new to the streaming scene, or maybe you've tried streaming on your own, maybe you've given it a shot here or there, and maybe it's taken off a little bit, but hasn't taken off a lot. One of the reasons for this is because it is a full-time job, and oftentimes for streaming purposes, it's way more than a full-time job. So if you think of a full-time job, at least here in the United States, is mostly 40 hours a week. That's kind of the definition, the definitional understanding of how many hours are required at minimum for a full-time job, for full-time work. Yeah, streamers oftentimes are streaming 10 to 12 hours a day, 6 to 7 days a week. When you look at the top streamers that are broadcasting in various categories, that is one of the things that is consistent. Maybe their schedules are different. Maybe the way that their content is presented is different. Maybe their the values that they have on their particular streaming channel are different. But the one thing that is consistent is that they stream a ton, so that way their viewers can see them. Now, of course, there is curvature to that. There are some folks who just stream once a week, and they're very, very successful. There's always going to be outliers as examples, but I don't think that I would be able to provide an entertaining stream for us as a community, a stream of value that would really be worth checking in on if we only did it once to twice every couple of weeks. I personally don't engage with streams that only go up every so often. I personally don't necessarily follow YouTube channels that only go up ever so often. So consistency is a big reason for why I don't stream. Also, I've talked a lot about work. So I am full-time employed and then have a couple of part-time jobs as well. In addition, of course, to playing Path of Exile and to having lots of hobbies involved in gaming. And so for me, to stream would be adding on another hobby that I don't think that I would excel at, and I don't think that you as a community would necessarily enjoy as much. That doesn't mean I won't ever do it. It just means that I am not like a lot of people inside the gaming community, not that there's anything wrong with this, that are desirous and hopeful that they will turn streaming into a career. That's not my goal. That's not something that I'm aiming to do. So that's one of the reasons why I don't stream, or that's two of the reasons why I don't stream: consistency and work. I don't need to. I provide for my kids and my wife and myself in other ways other than streaming. So if you'd ever like me to stream, I will say feel free to leave a comment, but scheduling it oftentimes is a nightmare, and really, realistically, the only times that I really can stream are oftentimes on holidays when I don't have work, and I like to spend a lot of time with my family when I have those opportunities. So really long-winded answer to why I don't stream, but hopefully that is satisfactory for at least some of you. Some of you are still going to go, oh, Iron, you should stream anyway. Well, maybe I will at some point. Maybe that'll be a fun thing for all of us to do. All right, next question. Build advice. A lot of people ask me for build advice, and this is kind of awkward in some ways. I'm happy to interact with build questions, but I haven't played every single build in the game. And the folks who are big-time streamers, who are big-time build guide enthusiasts, they haven't even played every build in the game. That doesn't mean that our advice, my own or theirs, is unhelpful, but it just means that it's limited to the experience and to the time and to the resources that somebody's able to dump into your question for build advice. So in other words, if you ask a question, let's say about running a Cyclone build, if you ask that question to somebody who's never played Cyclone, like none of us at the moment have ever played 3.7's Cyclone, and of course in the future we will, but at the moment none of us have played Cyclone in Legion League, so we don't know what the new Cyclone is going to be like. So for a lot of people asking questions about, hey, what's Cyclone going to be like in Legion and how should we build it? Well, we kind of need to know patch notes, and we kind of need to know what the gameplay is going to be like before we can answer that question, right? So it's limited. An answer is limited to the resources that are available to the person that you're asking advice for. So that's kind of my disclaimer here. Now, that being said, somebody like Crazy Cracker or Crazy Cracker, what build will be OP? I need to know. My general answer to questions like this is, hey, what do you mean by OP? Right? Do you mean like, hey, the fastest mapping clear? Do you mean the most efficient way to generate currency? Do you mean the fastest way to get to Shaper and to take down endgame bosses? Do you mean the fastest leveling build to rush into race to get to 100? So a lot of the times when people say, hey, I just want the best build, just tell me what the best build is. A lot of the time they may be asking what's the most meta build. But until we know what their definition or what their understanding is of what's OP or what's best or what style of content in Path of Exile they enjoy, it's really tough to answer those sorts of questions. So a lot of the time, if you ask a question on one of our videos and I respond with a question like, hey, what do you mean by OP or what do you mean by meta? Just at least, store this kind of disclaimer in your head like, oh, maybe I need to tell Iron what I'm aiming for. So, that being said, Ross leaves this question. Hey, keep up the great work. I appreciate the effort and videos you put out. Any chance you'll be doing something like looking at builds from your community for upcoming Legion? Yes. So, I occasionally try to do overviews of various builds on the forums that are well written. That's a requirement for me to show them off, for them to be useful to us as a community, that they're well written guides, that they are new player friendly, that if you're new to the game, and what I mean by new player friendly is they've probably got some video clips. They've probably got some explanation of mechanics. They don't simply say, hey, here's my 5 million DPS Shaper guide. Here's the POB link, paste bin, go play it, right? It's got video. It's got explanation in the forum title. It's got maybe some mechanical explanation. It's got even targeted content that the build is made for. So yes, I like to look at builds, and there will, of course, be featured some starter builds coming up for Legion. I've been debating whether or not I want to switch up our content schedule to actually do like 2 different types of starter builds, with one starter build coming out after patch notes are released, one starter build video, and then another starter build video that actually comes out before patch notes, maybe trying to predict some builds that will still be strong regardless of what patch notes do. The trouble with trying to predict that, for instance, I think lightning trappers and saboteurs probably aren't going to get touched at all, basically, during Legion. And so it would be very, very easy for me to say, as a recommendation, hey, go play a lightning trapper. That being said, what if there is some kind of massive change, maybe to the passive tree, maybe not to the ascendancy saboteur directly, but maybe if there's some sort of change to the passive tree that would maybe mess with the build. I don't want to go out and give advice to players and then they hang their hat on it and say, this is definitely what I'm going to play because Iron made a good recommendation and I trust Iron. And then they go, oh, wait, the patch notes came out and destroyed this build. Why would I ever listen to that guy again? I don't want to breach that trust that we have as a community. So yes, videos will be coming out. What the format that those are going to look like in, yet to be determined, but we will look at some builds. Okay, third question here on build advice. What build do you recommend for specifically spamming maps to spam level 95 characters to have a good chance at getting lots of MTX during the Flashback League? Okay, this is an excellent example of a great build question. It's a little bit more narrowed from Cool Depot. It's not as wide open as Crazy Cracker, so it's more focused, and so it's easier to give just a focused response that's actually going to be helpful to the person asking the question. So for those of you that are asking questions about build advice, make sure it's specific and going for what you're going for. Specifically to answer this question really quickly right here with Cool Depot, there's a bunch of different ways to spam maps. Auto bombers are really, really fast. Tornado shot is really, really fast. You can play tornado shot either as a Pathfinder, you can play it as a Raider, you can play it as a Deadeye. It's really, really open. And so if you're doing it for the MTX and you want to race for demigods, or you're just looking to get lots of characters leveled up, that would be, 4 different ascendancies that I would look at. Also, oftentimes what you want to do when you're looking for something like this where it's competitive is you just want to look at how many competitors are inside the same bracket as you. So if you're playing something like a Trickster for Flashback, for Synthesis Flashback, there's tons of players playing Trickster. Whereas if you play something like Slayer, there's going to be a lot less players playing it, and so greater chances for you to get your character into a race for a demigods. That being said, if you're just doing this for the MTX and you just want to spam as many characters as you can, I would pick a character that you're comfortable leveling as fast as possible throughout Acts 1 through 10, and then, of course, transitioning into maps as fast as possible, spamming the same maps over and over with a really quick layout. My favorite layouts this particular league are Channel. Of course, Channel is always a great layout. Atoll is another great one that you can use your Shaper Orbs on in order to give yourself a little bit more levels to get you boosted and to get you going a little bit faster. Level 95 is not that far, really. It's a whole other grind to go from level 95 to level 100, so it's not that far for you to go, even if you're short on maps or low on maps. All right, next question about G3 Iron. So occasionally folks have questions, personal questions that are about who I am, so running through these really quick. I Like Guns 1992 said, why do you always say the G3 community, G3 Iron, when your channel is called Good Guy Gaming 3? There is such an awkward disconnect. Okay, so really brief story time. Pull up a chair, grab a beer, brief story time. So G3 started as a competitive gaming community back in 2013 when I was playing League of Legends, and I was really, really frustrated with solo queue, with playing alone in a 5-player game. If you're not familiar with League of Legends, in a 5-player cooperative and competitive game where it's 5-on-5, so that's the competitive aspect, 2 teams of 5 players go against each other. And I was really frustrated playing that alone. I wanted to play with other players that had similar values, to play with other players that had a similar appreciation for committing to practice times, wanted to play with other players who had a similar value in communicating and in using microphones. We actually had a requirement if you wanted to join the G3 community back in 2013 that you had to have a microphone, and we would turn people away if they joined in and said, oh, my microphone's not here, or I'm getting a microphone at some point. Occasionally we would make an exception, but we really wanted to make sure that people shared the same values as we were competing in League of Legends. That being said, that started Good Guy Gaming, and the reason why we needed to use Good Guy Gaming 3 was because we thought we would call it 3G. That was a really good decision that we didn't call it 3G, because that would have been really confusing for anybody that was looking up cell phone coverage for 3G cell phone coverage back in the day. So it was a good thing that we didn't call ourselves 3G. So we settled on G3, and we needed a tag, we needed a slogan, and we needed a logo in order to represent us as a community. And Good Guy Gaming is a mouthful to say all of the time. G3 is a lot faster, and so a lot of us would separate into teams when we had practice nights and when we had competitive ranked back in the day for League of Legends. And so oftentimes we had different teams that were called G3 Orange, G3 Black, G3 Just the Tip, G3 Final Push. We had lots of different ranked teams that we had and players that came through. And so we all gave ourselves that G3 tag. Those of you that are more familiar with other games that require guild tag systems, and of course that's supported in Path of Exile as well with having that G3 tag, but if you're familiar with other games like that, we also had a guild in World of Warcraft. We play a lot of Rocket League. We played Hearthstone. We played Overwatch. There's a lot of different games that we've played over the years, and so having a tag system like G3 has been nice. So that's why we say G3. That's why I refer to myself as G3 Iron. Okay, Michael Strofolino. Michael asks the question, where does iron come from when your handle is Good Guy Gaming? Okay, good question. So, another quick story. Back in the day, when I got started in fantasy gaming, I don't even remember what fantasy game it was, whether or not it was Dungeons and Dragons or just a homebrew that a buddy of mine had cooked up. But I got really excited and really into studying dragons. Dragons of all kinds, dragons in ancient mythology, dragons in Eastern mythology, Western mythology, dragons and their various forms and religions, and their various purposes and uses. So when it came around to my turn, actually, as I was growing up to come up with a homebrew campaign for the game that we were playing, I wanted to set the world in a stage where 2 cosmic dragons or 3 cosmic dragons, or maybe it was 4, I don't even remember, but they were basically cosmic dragons that were all battling, and in the midst of their battling, creation happened. So like a Big Bang explanation of the universe, but it was dragons that were battling, essentially cosmic dragons. And so I came up with the name Draconis instead of dragon. That's not something that I came up with. Other people throughout time and space and history have called dragons Draconi or Draconis. So iron comes from this, in that the Iron Dragon was one of the dragons that was involved in this great cosmic fantasy battle that I had written for our homebrew way back in the day when I was just a wee lad playing fantasy in a basement that was a little bit different from the basement that I am now in. So that's where iron comes from. Each of the dragons were essentially different types of metal, and supposedly in that storyline, in that fantasy, different forms of metal were different offshoots or different remnants of pieces of the battle that the dragons had been involved in. So iron, steel, and then of course there were other types of metal as well that were lesser draconi, as it were. So anyway, so as the storyteller of that campaign, I named myself Iron, because the narrator of that particular gameplay was the Iron Draconis that was narrating that game. So I've always kept it. People have known me as Iron. There's a bunch of different nicknames that I've been known from. I'm sure many of you have different nicknames and different reasons why your handles are the way they are. I'd love to hear some of those stories down below, so feel free to comment why your gaming handle is the way it is. But that's where Iron comes from, and so I've always kept that. Sometimes it's long form Iron Draconis, sometimes it's Steel Draconis, sometimes it's Raging Draconis, sometimes it's other sorts of Draconis, but usually it's some form of Draconis and some form of Iron is mixed in there. Great question. Okay, Red asked a question. We hit gold, boys. Feels like immense pressure to ask a good question. Quick, someone think of something related to management in the gaming industry. That is a funny question. So how did you come to be such a nice, calm, and passionate person? Wink, wink. Okay, you're doing too much brown nosing here, Red. So just really quickly, we all become the people who we are through the experiences that we've had. So I wouldn't say that I'm a nice, calm, or I would say I'm a passionate person, but I wouldn't say that I'm nice or calm. I'm very excitable. I wouldn't even particularly say that I'm nice. I'm kind to my kids. I try to be. And I'm kind to folks who I care about, but I'm just like everybody else. I have bad days where I get pissed off at stuff and can get angry about stuff. But in terms of passion, generally speaking, I don't get involved in things. This is just a part of my personality type. I don't get involved in things that I'm not passionate about. And so chances are, if I'm showing something off or I'm involved in something here in the channel, it's because I'm passionate about it and I want to learn about it. I want to study it. I want to share it with other people. And so that's where a lot of my passion comes from. But yeah, too much brown nosing there, Red. Shame on you. Okay, next question. Guild questions. Lots of people have guild questions. So first off, from Brandon, what is your opinion on the up-and-coming melee changes, i.e. are they enough, or should GGG do more? Brandon, I'm sorry. On the first one, I kind of got a punt. Until I actually play Path of Exile Legion, I can't really comment on whether or not they need to do more. So far, it looks good. I will say so far it looks good, and I'm very happy with it. 2, what plans do you have for the channel, as in both short and long-term goals? Plans for the channel are to keep providing content, keep answering questions, and keep studying stuff inside Path of Exile and providing really, really fun, awesome discussion platforms for us to learn about the game, to engage with the game, and to engage with one another as we're all studying and learning and getting better at the game all together. These are more personal questions. Question number 3, where can I get a link to the Discord? This is a frequent question. Oftentimes I will put it down below in the video description. Some videos I actually don't put a link to the Discord, because I actually think that they're probably not new player friendly or not necessarily veteran player friendly. Like if I think it's one way or the other, then I won't necessarily put the link down in the Discord, because specifically a lot of the time our Discord has got a lot of veterans in it, and it's got a lot of beginners in it. And so when I feel like our guild and our Discord fills up with too much of one or the other, it means too many people are going to be answering questions that don't get answers. And when too many people join the server that are all veterans, then we don't have new people asking questions and learning about the game. And then sometimes, and I've been a part of communities like this in gaming, not in PoE, but in gaming in general, where then it just becomes a measuring contest and everybody's comparing one another against each other. So I really don't appreciate that kind of environment. I like an environment where everybody can learn, where everybody can appreciate something that somebody else is bringing to the table. And so there are times where I'll put the Discord link down below, and there are times where I won't. Next, can you provide any information on the in-game guild, such as if there is space to join, and is it hardcore only? It is not hardcore only, and there is space to join when there's space to join. So I say that as a caveat. There are times where I will go in and boost our numbers for available slots in the guild. We always have reserved slots for Patreon supporters, because that's a way that I can say thank you to Patreon supporters, is to make sure that there's always room for them inside the guild, whether or not they take a break for a league, whether or not they even walk away from PoE for a time and they come back. I always want to keep those supporters inside and available space. So other than that, it's free for all, and it really is free for all. I keep a couple of spaces open for Patreon supporters, and other than that, everyone is welcome to join the G3 guild. It is not hardcore only. We've actually got way more softcore players than we do hardcore, and I play hardcore and softcore. I try to alternate the leagues, but last year, during the cycle of Bestiary, Incursion, and Delve, Mrs. Draconis and I, we had just had our newest child back in January of 2018, and so I wasn't going to mess around with hardcore that year. So a bunch of players who joined the guild in 2018 didn't even realize that I was a hardcore player a lot, and that was actually how I got my start in PoE. So I try to alternate that, and there are some hardcore players that have joined and been attracted, especially through Synthesis League. Believe it or not, there's actually people that enjoyed Synthesis League, and we all played it in hardcore. It was fun. But now for the upcoming Legion League, I'm going to be playing softcore, and it'll be great. I'm probably going to be doing a bunch of magic finding. Hey, Iron, this is from JTD. Hey, Iron, I was wondering if you guys ever take new members into the guild. Yes, we do. Just answered it. This is my second character, a 90 Pathfinder Inquisitor. First was on Betrayal, level 95 Deadeye, but this game is super overwhelming, and there are still so many things I need to learn. For example, I just finally got around to trying my luck at Delving. I was wondering if you'd be willing to let me either join the guild or at least tag along so I can sponge all your guys' knowledge. Yes, you do not need to be a Patreon supporter in order to come on our Discord. You do not need to be a Patreon supporter in order to join the guild. You do not need to be a hardcore player in order to join the guild. You don't need to be a hardcore player to join the Discord. Your questions, your feedback, your input, and your participation in our community are welcome. And if at any point in time there's drama that's stirred up, just let me know, and we'll take care of whatever drama. Occasionally there's drama in internet communities. That's something that always happens. But if there's ever drama, just let me know. Send me a PM on Discord and we'll get it handled. All right, next question. Miscellaneous questions from Fluffy Fractal Shard. I cannot pronounce anything. Fluffy Fractal Shard. There we go. Say that 10 times fast. That's incredibly interesting. Where do you get your numbers from? So this was in response to our meta videos that we do. Occasionally we do meta update videos. Whenever I pull numbers from anything, I try to cite them in the video. So I would just reference this. If you've got a question about where we're pulling information from, just ask the question, hey, where are you pulling your numbers from? I'm happy to cite sources. And I think we live in the age of the internet, where citing sources is really easy to do nowadays. And so we ought to do it whenever we've got an opportunity to cite our sources. We really ought to cite our sources. So whether that's referencing something that an employee from Grinding Gear Games has said and referencing a thread or a tweet or a Reddit post, or if that's from a YouTube video that somebody else is quoting, or if that's from a third-party website like PoE Builds or like PoE Ninja, there's all sorts of places where we cite and reference numbers from and cite various things that we talk about here on the channel. So if you've ever got a question about citation, hey, where did you get that from? Check the video description first, because chances are we probably cited it. But if we didn't cite it, feel free to call me out, because there are times where I miss a citation. So feel free to drop questions down below. All right, Desiree said, my son, he's quoting me here. This was an interaction that we had on Discord. He said, my son wanted to play a game of Teemo before bed. What kind of devil's spawn are you raising over there, Iron? Yeah, so I am a Teemo main. But when I say I'm a Teemo main, there have been like 2 seasons that I've really grinded Teemo in League of Legends, and so I've gotten this horrible reputation as being a Teemo main, and I've raised up my son that Teemo is a fun character that he can play with me when we're playing League of Legends, and it's fun. No, we don't go into ranked together when my son is playing. We're just playing normals or we're playing bots. Because I think that's awful. Imagine for a moment if you got into a ranked competitive experience and literally there was a 3-year-old or 4-year-old that was mashing buttons. It would be terrible. So I don't want to propagate that. I don't want to do that. But yes, I am a Teemo player, and yes, my son enjoys watching and participating in playing Teemo in League of Legends. All right, B Chillin asked on YouTube, in the future, Can you provide a timestamp to your comments so I can skip you reading a given post? Yes. So there's been a lot of feedback about this. I feel like as the channel has grown, there's been a lot of really militant feedback. Some folks are just like absolutely opposed to reading posts and to reading information and recording it on YouTube. And some folks are like really supportive of it and are like, hey, thanks so much for doing the channel the way that you do it. We love that you're always giving information. I get a lot of posts and a lot of encouragement from folks saying, hey, I'm playing a game while I'm listening to you talk, and it's kind of like a podcast, and so I enjoy that aspect. I know that a lot of the time that's how I interact with my favorite YouTubers and my favorite podcasters is I'm listening while I'm doing something else, while I'm writing an email for work or while I'm playing a game. And so I think that we live in an age where, if you don't cite your sources and you've got information right in front of you and you're going to read it, I'm already going to read patch notes. I'm already going to read the different things that are coming out for various leagues like Legion, the various spoilers and the various teases. I'm already going to read that. So I might as well record that and share that excitement with everybody together, and we can all share that together and we can have live reactions of it together. Some folks prefer more curated content where somebody has already read through everything and come up with answers and responses. I think that's great. I think there is a number of content creators inside the Path of Exile community and gaming at large that do an exceptional job at that. And so that's not something that I'm going to do. It's not something that I'm going to sit back and take the extra time to say, okay, I'm going to do an initial reading of this and then a second reading of it, and then I'll develop my own thoughts, and then I'll come back and give a response. A lot of the times we do that style of content with meta stuff where we're doing a lot of research on what's popular and what's not. We do that when we're showing off builds where there's a ton of reading that goes on before we ever produce a build video that shows off people's different builds. And for every one build that you see on a G3 YouTube video, there's probably 10 builds that we didn't choose to feature. So I appreciate that folks say, hey, I don't just want to hear a dude reading something that I've already read. If you've already read something, that's great. We try to provide patch notes, and that's one of the reasons why I include timestamps included above my slightly balding forehead. So that way, if at any point you're watching the video or you're whether that's on mobile or on desktop, at any point in time, you can go, okay, I want to skip this part. Let's jump ahead. I think that's very important, and I think that we've got a digital age and the technology to be able to avail ourselves to those sorts of options as content creators, so we might as well take advantage of it. It's one of the reasons why I like putting time slamps right above my slightly balding forehead and include them in the video rather than just dropping them in the video description. A lot of people don't actually ever look at a video description, even if you tell them to. So that's why I include that sort of stuff inside the video panel itself. Okay, what questions do you have? Feel free to drop a comment down below. If you've got questions, I will do my best to respond to each and every question. I appreciate you watching this video and engaging in this community. Of course, there is the Discord link down below if you're looking for a place to call home inside Path of Exile. We do have a guild that, like I said, is open and free to everybody once we fill up. Generally speaking, I try to buy more slots as we're able to. So feel free to join us in-game as well. My in-game profile is also linked down below in the video description of every single video that we publish about Path of Exile. So you can always go down there and find my in-game name in order to hit me up, send me a Discord PM and say, hey, this is my IGN and I'm looking to join the guild. We'll get you invited to the Discord and then get you invited in-game in the guild. All that being said, thank you so much for interacting. I really love the way how this community has grown over the last couple of years as we've had lots and lots of Path of Exile players come alongside. We started out just doing Path of Exile content relatively recently, and I'm just amazed and blown away by the number of folks that are excited and that are passionate, just as passionate as I am about Path of Exile and talking about Path of Exile. So I really appreciate all of your comments, all of your passion, because it gives me energy and keeps me going in order to continue to be a part of this wonderful community that is known as Path of Exile and that is known as Good Guy Gaming. So anyway, I hope that Legion is the league that a Mirror of Calandra drops for you. This is G3 Iron signing off until our next time.
Nice patrons, yes, good patrons. They're so kind and supportive.
I can't believe you watched that thing. That was a good job. You did it. You got through the whole video. Yay.